Welcome back to another week of art. This week we are going to be talking about ceramics. We're not actually going to be using clay, but we are going to be designing a clay vase in our sketchbook using just orange and black color. And the reason we're using orange and black color is that if we went back to ancient Greek time, around 500 BCE, their vases were orange and black. The reason they were orange and black was those were the materials that they had. They used a black slip, which was probably magnesium, over an orange clay body that was terracotta. Terracotta is very similar to the red bricks that you see around maybe your house or your town. And the reason they're red is, waiting for it, it's the iron. It's a low-fire clay body. And the reason that these glaze pieces aren't shiny is that they weren't able to get the ceramic firings hot enough to fuse glass. So they were low-fire clay bodies. And luckily, we still have some that we can see. There's a video to watch on the Dipylon Vase, which is a perfect example. Now, these are all happening in Greece. When we left off, we were in Iran, the cradle of civilization. Now we're going to go to Greece, the islands of Greece, where people lived around the islands, and there was an advent. We started seeing ceramics in art history. Here's an example of an early vase. This is an octopus vase. And do you see how the octopus covers the round volumetric ceramic piece? And you see the darkness of the octopus? That's probably magnesium slip. A slip is a watered down clay body with colorant. And this octopus vase is about 1,600 BCE. That's about 1,000 years after the Standard of Ore, which is, as you know, one of the first comic strips. And whereas the Standard of Ore was made out of seashells and limestone, now these are actually made out of clay. And like I say with you, when you're making things out of clay, you better make them well because they could last thousands of years, just like these vases. So after the octopus vase, in Athens, there was a very famous potter named Exekias. And he worked between 545 and 530 BCE. And here's an example of one of his vases. And you notice that the vase has its black slip and the figures are black. And the way they did this was he painted on the black slip and then he scratched away the clay body, revealing the orange clay underneath. And this also marks the time where an artist is first using his name, and he's very popular. And after that, about 15 years later, there was another potter, Euphronios. And Euphronios worked between 1515 and 500 BCE. And what he did was he kind of flipped what Exekias was doing, which he actually had orange figures on black clay bodies. But let's get to your project. So I have a vase here to show you. And there are different parts of a vase. A vase is kind of like the human body, that at the bottom we have our feet. Then in the body of the thing, we have our belly. Going up, we have our neck. And then at the top, we have our rim. Head, rim, neck, body, belly of the vase. So you would say that this vase has a skinny neck and a wide belly and kind of a small foot. So, and I'm going to get to you're actually going to design, and I'm going to show you how to design your pot using geometric patterns. And the Dipylon vase is a perfect example of a vase that used geometric patterns. You can see around the neck, by the rim, there's a meandering pattern. And you're going to create meandering patterns on your design too. And I'm going to walk you through that. You need copy paper, pencil, pair of scissors, watercolor, or if you don't have watercolor, you're welcome to just use markers. Or if you want, you can use watercolors and markers. So the first thing I'm going to do is design my vase. I'm going to draw a line right down the middle. Eventually I'm going to fold this in half. At the top of my vase, I'm going to tell how long I want the rim to be. Now I'm going to do it kind of, the bigger you have, the more space you can put on. So I'm going to put mine like this. Then I'm going to have my neck come down, and I want to have the belly of my vase be big. So I'm going to bring it out to this side. And my foot, I want to have a kind of a nice foot. So I'm going to notice how I'm using the whole piece of paper. Now here, I'm going to try and bring it back like this. That's a pretty good vase. Actually, I want to bring this out a little bit wider. This is just sketching. And I want to have a handle on mine. So I'm going to bring a big handle. Now watch this. I'm going to try and do this handle. Oh, it doesn't match that handle. Well, this is the trick. Doesn't matter. And I could resketch this if I wanted to, but I like this handle. I like this side of the vase. I like that. So what I'm going to do is fold this in half. Just like you're cutting out a Valentine, I'm going to cut this vase out. This is the tricky one here. And you can do it until you get it right. I'm not going to worry too much about that, but if I really wanted to get cut like that. Cut there. You can see it's kind of tricky. Now, with this, when I open it up, I have a perfect symmetrical vase. I'm now going to take that vase, put it on a page in my sketchbook, and lightly in pencil trace it. Just like I was tracing my hand. It's hard for you to see, but I'm just keeping it right along the edges. And I'm not pushing down very hard. But I am taking my time, not rushing. Don't forget the insides of the handles. So your vase should have a rim, a neck, a belly, and a foot, and a handle. Those are the parts of a pottery. Even if I take this coffee cup, here's the rim, here's the neck, here's the belly, the foot, and the handle. Once I have that, now I'm going to come and I'm going to start designing my vase. And we did talk about meandering a meandering line, and these are going to have bands. And one of the techniques that the potters used on their vases, and I'm going to curve this band, maybe I want to have a band right here, was, remember, these are cylinders, so they go from one side all the way around to the other. You're just going to design it as if it went all the way around. And in that line, I might make another line. I could create a pattern with triangles. Now I'm going to get to the meandering. In those triangles, maybe I want to put some squares on end or diamonds. You want to have a lot of pattern in your vase so that you have lots of different areas to color in. Here's an example of a meandering line. This is a classic one. It's kind of like a wave. And you keep that going. It's basically an L on its side. Here's another one. And I'm going to keep going around. Then I got to come back out. So it was that L, that original L, but I went deeper in. Ooh, I messed up, didn't I? Well, that's why we're using pencil. And design in your sketchbook, and when you feel good about it, move that pattern. So as I go, I'm just dividing my space up, simple lines. As lines go back in space, as they get closer to the edge of your pot, they'll get closer together to make it look like it's volumetric. You notice that the top is straight, then you see some curves. There'll be a curve here, which emphasizes the belly. And it's okay to have some areas of flat color. And I'm going to add on to this just a little bit. So a line that continuously goes is a meandering line. Meander is M-E-A-N-D, meander. The river meanders through the countryside. But in terms of pottery, this is a meandering line, and you can see some examples. So make sure to include a meandering line on your vase. And a meandering line could be as simple as a curve that follows the contours. Once you have it all set, you're going to color it in. When you go to color it in, be very careful, because if you choose to use watercolor, remember to warm up. I'm only going to use orange and black, or orange and black. Be careful not to mix. I might decide to do the handles in marker. And once I start outlining these hearts, do I want the hearts to be orange, or do I want the handle to be orange? Make that decision, and I think I want the hearts to be orange. That means I'm going to color in the hearts orange. And watch this trick. I can be really kind of sloppy. And then come back in with my black. And look how sloppy this is, and I'm just going to clean it up with my marker. You'll never even know that I was sloppy. Now, if I'm doing that, I have to color in this whole vase with black. So, and don't color, leave this background white. Got that? Here, if I decide to use watercolor, I've decided to leave, I like these cylinder shapes, so I'm just going to watercolor this. Notice too much water. So I have a piece of paper. Oops, you can get the water off of. I can also pull this off. So I'm going to color these in all orange. If these are orange, this is probably has to be black. Or I have an outline of black. Careful that your colors don't run. So it's really good to do certain areas and let them dry. Also, if I have watercolor, and again, if I go close to this and hit this, look what happens when you have these. If I had Sharpie, it'd be different. But if I have this, I come back in and hit this. See how it pulled it dark? You don't want that. So I decided to use marker on the handles, and I have a heart pattern on the handles. I'm using this flat brush here to paint in here. So think about how you're going to decorate, what patterns you're going to use for the rim, the neck, the belly, and the foot. Take your time also. So many times we see as schoolwork as, I got to finish this off and check it off. And I know you have to check off things on your alt school cards, the steps, but take your time. You might not want to do this all in one sitting. You might want to spread it out, enjoy it. See what happens if you spend, instead of trying to do it in just an afternoon or an hour, work up a little bit each morning. And you should probably spend a good hour painting in. Remember, you're trying to paint in the lines. Don't just paint and rush and make mistakes. See how slow I'm going? Remember, I'm getting close to that marker, so I'm going to give just a little bit of border because I don't want it to bleed in. Have fun with your work. And the great thing about watercolor is if I want to make it darker, once it dries, I can just go over it again and it'll get a darker orange. So you can have a whole bunch of different modeling by just layering and layering. Remember, it's easier to pull your brush than it is to push your brush. If you pull it towards yourself, you have more control. It's also okay to move your sketchbook as you work. Try and do your best you can. Stay in those lines. And you can see that this black I'm using really is not the highest quality. It's okay if it comes out looking brown, as long as your intentions were black. And here I decided that I was going to do some stripes. I'm going to go back in once it dries with orange. Once you feel like you're done, now it's time to make it better. And this watercolor is really nice that it gives it that ancient look where it's not 100%, it's a little mottled, which means it's not one even coat like acrylics would be. So I want this one to be darker, I'll just go over it.